What's going on YouTube? It's Adam from Beyond the Grid. Welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, thanks for stopping by. It's fall in Vancouver and this is my favorite time of the year, mainly because of the colors and I just love shooting in it. So I want to show you guys how I'm going to be editing my photos for the fall and putting my own twist on things and creating that moody autumn look. So let's jump into Lightroom and let's get into this edit and hopefully you guys can create something that is a little bit different. Alright guys, now that we're in Lightroom, let's get into this edit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to warm it up by going over to your temperature tab and we're going to raise this guy right up to, let's say, 453, so 6,453. And then our temperature, we're going to drop this guy down just a little bit, let's say about a +4, looks pretty good. Our exposure, we're going to drop this down, let's say about a -40. Looks pretty good. Our contrast, we're going to jump this up. It's about a +27, looks pretty good. Our highlights, we're going to drop this down to, let's say, -11. Our shadows, we're going to raise these right up. And our whites, we're going to jump this up just a tiny bit. Our blacks, we're going to leave. And our clarity, we're going to jump this up, let's say about a +10. Vibrancy, we're going to lower this, let's say -14, sorry. And then our saturation, we're going to leave this guy at about a +7. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave our tone curves for now. We're going to come right over to our HSL, so our hue, saturation, and luminancies, and we're going to adjust these guys. So our red, we're going to bring this up towards the orange area. Let's say about a +16 looks pretty good. Our orange, we're going to drop the same about -16. Our yellows, we're going to drop this guy about a -15. Greens, aquas, blues, and purples and magentas we can leave. Our reds and saturation, we're going to drop this down to, let's say, about a -9. Oranges, we're going to jump this up to about a +54. Our yellows, we're going to raise this guy to about a +45. Greens, we're going to leave, and the rest of it we'll leave for now. Luminancies, we're going to jump the reds up to about a +40. 43 looks pretty good on that. This one we're going to jump up to 94. That looks pretty good. And our yellows, we're going to jump this right up to +66. And again, the remainder we're going to leave. So I know the photo looks a little bit weird, guys, but it'll change the minute we touch here because this is where a lot of the magic is going to happen. So we're going to come over here. We're going to click on, let's say, right there, 186 hue, so highlight 186, and our saturation, we're going to bring it down to about a +12%, and let's go 186. So that looks pretty good like that. And then our shadows, we're going to do almost the same thing. We're going to create a blue shadow, but a little bit darker blue. So let's say 221, and we're going to bring this up, let's say, so we'll see what looks good. 9% looks pretty good. Our balance, we're going to bring this over towards our highlights. So what that's going to do is it's going to create a balance almost shifting towards the highlights. So the highlights are going to be more prominent than the shadows. So when I turn this off by clicking the toggle here, you can see the before and then the after when I add that on there. And it looks pretty good if you ask me so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our sharpening. We're just going to sharpen this up a little bit, add a little bit of a mask. Let's say about there. Noise reduction, we're going to leave. Coloring, we're going to leave. And then we're going to create a small vignetting. So let's say about a -10% looks, 14% looks pretty good. Highlights, we're going to leave. Feathering, we're going to raise this up. Let's say a full 100%. Roundness, we're going to drop this down just a tiny bit. And midpoint, we're going to leave this guy at about a 0. So as you guys can see, when I turn this guy off now, it's going to create that vignetting and that you guys can see. So let's pop down here to our lens calibration, or sorry, camera calibration. We're going to bring this over to the pinks. Let's say about a 43. Our reds, we're going to bring this guy down to -4. And saturation about a -5. Greens, we're going to bring this down to about a -14 looks pretty good. Our blues, we're going to just jump this up just a tiny bit. Let's say plus 6. So far this is your before and that's your after. But let's jump over to our tone curves and let's adjust this guy really quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a point here and a point here. We're going to drop our highlights down just a little bit. We're going to raise our shadows up a little bit. And then we're going to take this guy and actually raise it up over the original dotted line a little bit. And then this guy we're going to drop down just a tiny bit, let's say right about there. Then we're going to go over to our reds, and this is where it's going to get a little bit different, guys. So we're going to create a point right about here, and we're going to leave it at that number. So if you guys read the numbers right here, it's going to say 16.5 or 14.9%. So you can adjust it and move it around until you get those numbers. And then we're going to create one right in the middle. And we're going to try to get this one almost even. So let's say right there looks pretty good. And then we're going to come over to our greens. And the only thing we're going to do with our greens is we're just going to drop the highlights down just a tiny bit. Let's say right there. So 100 and then 93.7. So the 100 is this one. And then the 97% is this one. So then we're going to come over to our blues. We're going to again do the same thing. So I'm going to create a dot here just to be an anchor point. Try to get that back up to the middle as best as possible. And then we're going to come over here and drop this guy right about there. So again, if I turn off your tone curves, that's your before and that's your after. So it creates almost like a fade and then adjust the blues a little bit. Now what we're going to do to really make her pop is we're going to go over to our gradient filters, which is located right here. And we're going to come over here, adjust this to, let's say, about a minus 29. Clarity, we're just going to leave it the same. So if you double click here or on the actual toggle, it'll just reset it to 0. So we're going to drop this guy down, pull it on the top. Then we're going to take another one and just pull it over here. So if you actually hold it over it, what it'll do is it'll show you what it's going to be affecting. Or you can hold 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to here to the radio filter. And we're going to jump this guy up, let's say about a plus 50. Clarity, we're going to drop down just a little bit. And the rest we'll leave alone. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a filter over our girl here. And just a little bit lower, a little bit wider. And you guys can see the feathering. What that's going to do is it's going to affect how much it's going to feather on the outsides or the insides. So let's go right about there. And you know what? She's a little bit too orange. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this guy down just a tiny bit. Let's say -2. Temperature, we're going to come over to the greens. Let's see how that looks. Nah, that looks weird. So let's just reset that. Exposure is just a little bit high. So what we'll do is we'll adjust this guy just a tiny bit. And let's see before and after. So click enter on your keyboard. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our paintbrush and we're going to reset our exposure. And we're just going to drop it down just a little bit. And we're going to add some blue into this one, just a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to paint over our waterfall. So if you click the bracket key, the right bracket key, you can actually select it a little bit differently. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to paint over our waterfall a little bit. Not going to go too precise here, but you guys kind of get the point. And I've also, if you guys can see, I don't have my auto mask on because I'm going to come back and I'm just going to adjust it. But because the waterfall is kind of everywhere. Now click O on your keyboard and you can see I pretty much painted everything. Now I'm going to click on my auto mask. I'm going to hit the option key on my keyboard and I'm just going to come in and just kind of erase on the outsides. And what it'll do is it'll auto mask to the color that I'm in, and this way it kind of gets a little, let's go quickly there, and then auto mask again, add that one back, and then auto mask on the outside. Click here, auto mask on her skin, and then click O. Now as you guys can see, it's a little bit too blue and it looks weird, so what we're going to do is we're going to raise this guy up a little bit. Oops, wrong way. Let's go just a tiny bit And then we're going to bring up our feather all the way so you don't see those weird lines that you guys cause to see there. And let's go about there. So without the filters, you can see it's really bright. And then afterwards, it looks like that. So let's click enter on that and get out of there. So let's show you guys a quick before and an after. So as you guys can see, that Moody Autumn look is something spectacular and something different, and I hope that my customers love it, and I hope you guys love it. So this tutorial was brought to you in collaboration with a fellow photographer who was recently here in Vancouver. His name is Nick, and his Instagram is different.perspectives, so pop over and give this guy some love. So as part of this collaboration, we're going to be giving you guys the desktop version of this for free. I'm also going to link down below the mobile collection if you guys want to get that too. But before you guys go down there and click on one of those, make sure you guys are hitting that like button. If you guys are not a subscriber, I mean, why aren't you? Hit that subscribe button. And until the next video, take care, everybody.